Hi, I'm Geerges. As ISIS fighters are pushed out of areas of Iraq, the world can see the scale of devastation they leave behind. So what's next for those victimized by the Islamic State who've lost everything?
There is no other options. Iraqi Christians were 1.5 million and now we are down to 300,000. So they are in the edge of extinction.
Welcome to the Geerges Show. When ISIS rolled into Mosul and the Nineveh plain in the summer of 2014, Christians knew if they stayed, they'd be killed. They fled, usually with only the clothes on their backs. As certain villages are liberated, a few people have made tentative steps to go home. But they found total destruction and a very uncertain security situation. Joining me is Loay Mikhael, head of foreign relations for the Chaldean, Syriac, Assyrian Popular Council. And joining us by Skype is Majed El Shafie, human rights advocate and founder of One Free World International. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Majed, I want to start with you and ask you about your personal story and how you came to be a champion for human rights.
I was 18 years old when I converted from Islam to Christianity back home in Egypt. I was arrested by the Egyptian authority. I was tortured severely for 7 days in the Egyptian prison.
And
you were upside down.
Sorry, you were arrested for what charges?
Basically for different charges, but mainly trying to make revolution against the Egyptian government, for converting from Islam to Christianity, for trying to convert others from Islam to Christianity.
And that's illegal in Egypt?
That's illegal in Egypt in so many words. You have to understand that in a country like Egypt, you cannot build churches. There is something, it's called Al-Khatt al-Hamayuni law. It's a law that you cannot build churches even. You can build bar, discotheque, but not even churches. The Egyptian president is full with the Christian human rights activists that they are trying to fight for equal rights between the Muslims and the Christians and the other minorities. So I was taken to Abu Zabal prison. I was tortured for 7 days, from hanging me upside down, slashing my back, taking the nails of my toes, putting salt and lemon in my open wounds. It was very severe torture, to a house arrest to receive the death penalty. That's when I escaped from Egypt to Israel. And through the Amnesty International and United Nations for Refugees, I was given a new hope and a new home in Canada. That's 15 years ago.
Are you able to tell us how you were able to escape and get into Israel?
Simply, I escaped from my house arrest to Alexandria, from Alexandria to Sinai. That's when I stole a jet ski and I crossed the border from Taba to Eilat and I surrendered to the Israeli police. Many of you will say, but you're a reverend, you're a man of God, how could you steal a jet ski? I stole a jet ski and I'm very proud of it. Don't worry about it.
Majed, when people fled ISIS, what were they able, how much notice did they have in Iraq, and what were they able to take with them?
Simply, there was no, when we're talking about, for example, the Yazidi community, there was no notice. They wake up, they found that ISIS was in their villages, they have to escape. A lot of them was not able to escape. That's when we saw the images on the national television, in the American national television and in the West, of many thousands people were stuck on the top of the Sinjar mountain running away from ISIS. But many of them as well was not able to escape. I can tell you that more than 7,000 Yazidi girls was captured by ISIS. Many of the men was killed, was massacred. Many of the children was taken as soldiers, child soldiers and brainwashed to fight for ISIS. Today, we see this being organized as a genocide from United Nations, from the American Congress, and from the Canadian Parliament and the House of Commons in England. But people didn't have any chances with the Christians. Almost the same situation happened. The difference that the Christians was given the options, convert to Islam or die. So Yazidis did not get this option. So this is basically what the situation that we saw.
And Loay, as Majed mentioned, there was a horrible massacre of Yazidis and the women sold into sex slavery. What did ISIS do to the Christians that they were able to capture or that refused to convert?
Well, I mean, in Mosul and in the plain, some of them, I mean, when ISIS get to these areas, they were given 48 hours to flee. When the 48 hours were over, so ISIS were looking for the families who stayed, were unable to flee. Some of them, they take them. As according to our records and information, about 40 families were missed from Mosul, and nobody mentioned those families that were taken to North Mosul, what's called Al Gayara. So those families were missed, and some of them, they were able to. Few families stayed. They were able to pay jizya, but when they run out from the jizya, they cannot. They don't have money. They cannot have a job to pay to afford to pay jizya.
And jizya is an Islamic
it's Islamic tax.
It's kind of like
insulting. It's like you pay it because you are second degree of the citizen, and this jizya is protection, like protecting you. So when families run out from the money, gold, you cannot have the jobs. Their daughters and sons, some of them were taken from them, in return they don't have money. They were taken because they don't have money. So their sons and daughters were taken as a jizya.
And we don't know what happened.
And we don't know what happened to those sons and daughters, and some of them 3 years old, some of them 5 years old, missed. And you can see now those parents live in Erbil. They don't have children with them.
There is a little girl named Christina.
Yeah.
Can you tell us her story?
I mean, Christina was taken from her mom's arms when ISIS get to the Mosul on that time. So she was 3 years old when ISIS was putting everybody in buses to deport them from Mosul, and in the plane, she was holding her baby in her arm, and ISIS militant came. He ran inside of the bus and he take the baby, 3 years old.
But why? What was he going to do?
I mean,
with
it's
her?
just like because he in their mentality is like when in ISIS ideology, or when she grow up until 6, 7, she can get married. And this is the way they don't have mercy. They are very brutal people. So anybody is non-Muslim or anybody doesn't go with their ideology, with their thinking, must be killed and die. She was taken from her mom, 3 years old, and it was very hard, as we know that ISIS militant, they cannot raise her because she needed milk, she needed to be traded, she needed to be taken care of. They gave it to a Muslim family on that time, and this Muslim family, they raised her as her kid. But it's very hard when you see her now. She's back. She doesn't recognize her parents because she was taken 3 years old, and now she's a 6. She was raised under the Islamic Sharia law, how to pray, how to talk to people, and how to. So she is now a little bit kind of like dramatized. She need a little bit treatment. So
I understood that she wasn't even talking at all.
Yeah, at the beginning she was not even talking, but when the people start to visiting her, giving her toys, talking to her, giving her chocolate, Sako visited her, few parliament members visited her, some political parties, activists, also NGOs, they give her a lot of toys, a lot of things, but she cannot still recognize her parents because she was raised in the age 3 to 6. It's hard to recognize her parents. She was raised in a different environment, in a different rules, different.
But thankfully, she was returned to her family.
Yeah, she was returned. Yeah.
So many others have not been returned.
Absolutely, yeah.
Majed, you were in Iraq recently. What did you see during that trip?
Basically, our mission in Iraq right now is divided into 2 areas. Number 1 is humanitarian supplies. So basically, from the medical supplies to the refugees and also to the forces that fighting ISIS on the border of Raqqa. So medical supplies is extremely important for the refugee camps. Many of the stories of this young little girl that you mentioned, many of what we call them vulnerable minorities, that they are not really supported by any militias or any government, they left behind. Another thing that we work with and we cooperate with different Kurdish tribes in an order to try to rescue and to save and to buy the Yazidi girls back, to rescue from them as possible as we can.
What has life been like for the past 3 years for these people that have been displaced and lost their homes, lost everything, their livelihoods, their children?
I saw as young as 9 years old, our organization was able to rescue many of the Yazidi girls, and I saw many as young as 9 years old. They used to rape her 20 times a day. That's true story. My guest here was talking about that the ISIS ideology of taking a little girl and getting her married. This is not ISIS ideology. This is the Islamic ideology. This is I'm sorry for being not politically correct. I apologize. But really, there is no time for politically correctness anymore. Politically correctness is just rubbish. What ISIS is doing is extremely what the Sharia and what the Islamic law telling them that they can do, especially for the non-believers. But the truth and the reality that there is no life to this minorities, to the Christians, to the Yazidis, to the Sampans and Mandeans, to Baha'is, to and even many of the Muslim secular or Muslim peaceful families. There is no life to them. It was hell on earth, and it was just some of them even wished death over this kind of life.
You know, Loay, there were reports of ISIS using the main church in Mosul to abuse Yazidi girls and women. And I think it would be very painful, even if ISIS left, to go back to those areas where such atrocities happened.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. I mean, it's very hard to go back to the cities and towns, churches that have been used to torture people, to kill people, to make them to do bad things to others, like to each other. I mean, like, what is in our hand? There's nothing we can do. All we can hope is that we still have to have a hope to go back and to rebuild. So in here, even if what happened to the Christians and Yazidis, some of them, they are determined to stay and go back and rebuild again. So,
but do they have the stomach for that?
I mean if the international community is an Iraqi government and Kurdistan regional government, the coalition forces that are there has a presence, if they has a will to do that, yes, these people will go again. They want to go back again. They want to build their schools, their communities again. They want to see their churches is back to back of what was before ISIS. I mean, there is no other options. I mean, Iraqi Christians were now 1.5 million, and now we are down to 300,000. So they are in the edge of extinction, and also I call them sometimes species endangers. You know.
I think the scale of destruction was surprising. Once people were able to go back into these areas that ISIS once held, every single church has been damaged and destroyed. 80% of homes were burned to the ground. I mean, I think there's an incredible amount of rebuilding that has to be done.
I mean, there was a research done by several NGOs that what is the amount of scale of rebuilding and what is the cost. So some of them estimated between $270 to $300 million to rebuild the towns, the villages, the houses, the churches, the infrastructure, roads, schools, to rebuild it again. But I mean, this amount of money is really nothing to what the Iraqi government is spending, to what the international community is spending on something else. $300 million to rebuild again and bring back those towns to life, it's really worth it. Because, I mean, you have thousands of Yazidis living in tents and caravans, hundreds of thousands of Christians and Shabaks and others, Turkmens. If you bring this back if you bring those people back, and try to reconcile among them, I mean, it's really, this is the only way for the Christians to survive in Iraq. Otherwise, they cannot live in the tents, in caravans, in unfinished buildings forever.
Majed, what would you say is the biggest need of the people there?
I would say the biggest need of the people there, of course, beside the humanitarian aid and support in order to help, we have to understand that also corruption is extremely a major problem in the region. So in order to ensure that our help and our support is reaching the right people, we have to have an accountability system in order really to help the people, but also the protection. Listen, these people, some of them can stay back at home and they can start to rebuild, and some of them, they cannot stay any longer, especially the girls that have been raped by ISIS. The stigma in our society, in their society, will make their life almost impossible. So we have to open our homes and our doors for them, the ones that have desire to leave. But the ones that doesn't want to leave, because we don't want to empty the Middle East from its own minority, especially Christian minorities, which is quite honestly the original people of the land. They must have an international support and an international protection. You can call it green zone, you can call it NATO soldiers protecting them, whatever it is. But that they need a protection, because this massacre will not be it's not the first, and I can assure you it will not be the last.
And why do you think ISIS fighters burn down all the houses on their way out? Is it just spite? Do they just want to make sure that this area is just uninhabitable?
This is their trademark. Once again, with my all due respect, it's not about ISIS. You can call them ISIS, you can call them Al Qaeda, you can call them Hezbollah, you can call them Hamas, you can call them whatever terrorist organization that you want. It's about the ideology of this Muslim extremist. And basically, they want to take the land, they want to empty the land from the minorities, they want to control the people, and whoever will disagree with them, doesn't matter what his religion or background, will be infidel, will be have to be killed. And so their destruction of the land is part of their plan that if I'm not taking it, nobody else will take it. So it's the mentality, it's what their education, it's what their belief. And for that, we have not just to fight them on the ground, we have also to fight this ideology. And I'm sadly seeing more and more their ideology, even in North America. You can see Americans fighting now with ISIS. You can see Canadians, Europeans. They are traveling now to Syria to fight with ISIS. From where you can see attacks happening in Canada. You can see attacks happening in the United States. Europe, just last week. 3 attacks in 3 days. We have to do something to stop this ideology.
It's certainly a very big subject, Majed, and certainly important because, as you said, you know, even if we work out the security, we get some soldiers to protect them, another militant group is going to come along that says you people should not be here and you don't have the right to live here. So, I mean, who's providing security for those areas that ISIS has been pushed out of?
I mean, since ISIS came to the areas of minorities, take it in Mosul, Nineveh Plain, we've been here in Washington, D.C. asking for international protection. But nobody is really hearing us. Nobody is willing to do something immediately to help and rescue those minorities.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, it's very complicated. Like you have many parties now. They are fighting in the areas where ISIS has existed now and used to exist also in some parts. But you have Iraqi government, you have popular mobilization units supported by Iran, you have Peshmerga, you have coalitions. And we been calling for international protection or international safe zones, or nobody is really like hearing us to do something.
Because nobody cares?
No, I don't know. Is that nobody cares? I can't really answer that because it's not my specialty. I don't know what is the inside of U.S. administration is happening. I cannot tell what does the international community think about the minorities, Yazidis. Do they really care about them? In what happened to them? No, they don't care really, because international community, they don't care about what happened to the Christians and Yazidis and others. If they were really care about those minorities, they were not letting them, actually they were not letting Mosul to fall in ISIS hands. But as I said, we've been calling for international protection. Since 2 years, nobody is hearing us. We were able to pass a resolution in the Congress by unanimous vote that what happened to Christians and Yazidis and those atrocities are genocide. And still, like we're still trying to do something through this genocide resolution that you need to, if you recognize
nice
genocide, it's a moral obligation to do something. But the protection who's doing in that area, you have Peshmerga Nineveh Plain is divided in 2 parts. You have north and south. North is controlled by Peshmerga, Kurdish forces, and south is controlled by Iraqi forces. And big portion of that south side is under the popular mobilization forces, Majed El Shafie, which they are 130,000 militia forces.
These are Shia militias.
Shia militia forces supported by Iran.
So I want to ask you a little bit more about politics since you bring it up, that there is a referendum coming up in September for independence for Kurdistan. Could the Christian areas of Iraq maybe like leave Iraq and become part of an independent Kurdistan?
Yeah, if they wanted, I mean, if the Christian wants to join the referendum that will be taking place on September 25, yes, because...
but will those Christian areas be voting in the referendum?
Yeah, those Christian areas will be voting if they want to go with that, because any municipal council wants to join the referendum process, they can, if any municipal council decided to join, they can join. Like Kirkuk has already decided that they want to join the referendum. Also, Sinjar will join because they want to join. They want to be part of Kurdistan. Because what we have been seeing since 2003 till now, no protection from the Iraqi government, no well to do anything to those areas. So they've been marginalizing the areas that the Christian and other minorities live. So here we have to pick up and choose which is better for us. The people who are able to trying to contain us and protect us, or the people who they don't care, or whatever happens to the Christians and other minorities.
But you think the majority of Christians would want to be part of
The majority
Kurdistan?
of Christians, I will tell you, 70 to 80% they want to join Kurdistan and they want to be part of Kurdistan.
Just because they have a more secular approach?
More secular approach, because if you look to the what happened to 2014, people fled towards Kurdistan, toward north, not toward Baghdad for protection. So since then, we have been heard any subject about that the Kurdish forces or Kurdish government is trying to kill or persecute Christians in large scale or in any governmental level. But in Baghdad, we've been seeing, even after ISIS been taking Mosul and Nineveh plain, we've been seeing in Baghdad more than 50, 60 houses being confiscated by a lot of gangs supported by some politicians in Iraq.
Majed, what can the typical American do to help these people?
We have a new administration in the Congress and in the White House. So I think it's extremely important for the American people to communicate with their administration, with their congressman, with their senator, and in order to put more pressure on the American government to do more to help and to protect the most vulnerable minorities. That's what we call them, the most vulnerable minorities in the Middle East, especially in Iraq and in Syria. We can see right now with regard like they are entering Iraq, they're entering Raqqa. The liberation of Mosul is taking place, and I'm not hearing of any survivors of the Yazidi Geerges, for example. So there must be an accountability for the killing of the civilians, especially if the Americans is involved in the war, and especially if the Iraqi soldiers is basically working side by side with the American troops. There must be accountability. There must be more helping to the minorities on the ground. As an American citizen, you have the ability to communicate with your congressman, to communicate with your American media to bring more attention. The more this issue is discussed, the more that there is pressure from the public about it, the more the most vulnerable minorities in Iraq and in Syria will have more attention. And I think it's extremely important to do that.
Loay, very quickly, what do you think that typical American should do? I
mean, America should be having responsibility of what really happened to Iraq and other places, because as Majed mentioned, that we have new administration, which they have more well to do something. And through we've been hearing the Vice President Mike Pence talking in several events that the Christians of Middle East, the minorities, the most vulnerable communities, as he mentioned, need to be protected, need to be taken care of it. And I think the United States should have a moral responsibility for protecting any minorities that have been under ISIS, whether they're Christians, Yazidis, Turkmen, whatever they are. So yeah, Congress should do something. and we want them to support our people we have several forces on the ground. We want them to support it morally and support it also by like ammunitions, and train them to be able to take care of their homes and towns. So now also there was a new bill was passed by the Congress, relief for the genocide, that people have been affected by genocide, which is that helping them materially, helping them, supporting them, rebuild their homes and towns. And now we are waiting for the Senate to pass this bill to become a law in the United States to help those communities directly.
And you think that's what we need right
we are
now?
I'm very optimistic that will happen.
Let's hope it happens, and that these people can get the help and the support that they need. Majed, Loay, thank you so much for being on the program, and keep up the good work, and let's hope we get some more good news coming out of Iraq.
Thank you.
This has been the Mimi Geerges Show. You can see all of our programs on WHUT.org and YouTube. Connect with us on Facebook and Twitter, and leave me your comments there. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me again next time.